My expectations prior to the residential were that it was going to be a really demanding but rewarding trip. I was expecting really long days and to be out probably socialising most nights, and that's exactly what we got. Another thing I was hoping was to get some good insight into how different companies market themselves, and it was really nice to go and see a broad range of companies and doing all sorts of different things, and stuff that I probably would never be involved in everyday life. Found the photo gallery particularly interesting. It's not something I probably would have visited if I'd gone to Cardiff or Penarth. So I'm glad that we went there. I found the installation really interesting. I think that I also expected a good bonding experience with my class and tutors, which I think we've definitely got. I mean, I've made some really good friends on the trip, and it'll be actually a real shame that I'm not going to have any more classes with them after the end of the Practitioner Perspectives module. With Mark, so I'll miss them a lot, but I've made a lot of friends and hopefully I'll keep in touch with them. The main practical insight that I took away from the residential was of communication. I was the only UK student on the course, and there were 3 other native English speakers, American girls, but apart from that everybody was a mixed range of English language, so I made sure that they all knew that I was happy to help them with English and things. So some of them did talk to me and they asked me questions, and it was actually quite nice. They were asking me about certain ways that we speak in English and sort of mannerisms and things that we have, so that was nice. Also, practically, one of the things I took away from the visits to the companies was how people do their CRM. And although I think a lot of them left a lot unsaid and undone when it came to their CRM. Obviously, working in CRM myself, I had a lot of things that I could suggest to them, but I also did find a few interesting things that I could take away myself. Not perhaps to use at Middlesex, because obviously we're quite advanced with the CRM that we do. But I mean, if I were ever to go and work in a company where they didn't have as an advanced CRM plan as we do at Middlesex, then it would be interesting to take especially some of the stuff that they said from the photo gallery away, and be able to use that on a lower budget and things. How I could envisage using some of the experience and the marketing insights that we got from the residential. The first thing is that I will be sure to mix up who I work with and not stick with the same people, because I think it was quite interesting working with people, especially in the treasure hunt that we did, working with people that I probably would never have naturally fallen into a group with, and I got on with them all really well. I'm also hoping that the experience will mean that next year when I'm the only person who's been there for a whole year and it's a whole class of new students, that I'll be able to communicate with them quite quickly and a lot more effectively, hopefully with some of the experiences that I've had of working in a group like that. I think from the marketing presentations, I think I've learned a lot about the power of presentations and different presentation styles, because we really did experience a lot of different styles of presentation. Some were fantastic and some were frankly not very good at all. But actually it's interesting when you have to try and take things away from those, and you have to try and get the same information from everyone, even though they're actually presenting it in a different way. I also think that it was very helpful to have a group project on such a tight deadline, because it meant that it forced us to kind of work in a way that we would never normally be expected to work, and it was good, I felt, as kind of like a practice run for the rest of the course and the rest of the projects that we're going to have to do, because there's quite a lot of group work. I think that the residential has had a fantastic impact on student relationships, not just with me, but amongst the whole group, because there were people that didn't really interact before. And there are some students that don't like to contribute as much in class, which is understandable, but I felt like this experience kind of gave people the confidence to speak when they may not have done so before. I also think I really did enjoy helping people with their English. I know I've actually already mentioned that. But I was happy to offer insight into the English language, into the UK in general, and especially into Cardiff, because I'd been there before. One thing that was interesting was obviously a lot of people had no experience of rugby, and I've been quite into rugby most of my life. My dad really loves it, so I had quite a lot of insight to offer into that. And I think that really helped, because people were sort of coming to me with questions, and it meant that I was speaking to lots of people that I may not have otherwise spoken to. I think that there was a good balance of work and fun, which meant that we all kind of built relationships on both a professional and a personal level. So that will be helpful in and out of the classroom, particularly when we're doing group work in future. And for some of the students who haven't actually had any practical work experience because they've just sort of come straight out of an undergraduate and started their masters, I think it will be really useful for them when they're actually going into work for the first time, because they'll understand how to work with group dynamics and things. I think that Peter and Paul were both fantastic, and they really contributed a lot to our week, obviously in the planning, but also with asking really relevant questions and sort of helping us interact. I think as a group we're actually quite good at asking questions, so I actually really value that from that point of view, in the tutors and academics sort of getting involved in the question asking to make sure that we're on the right tracks. I think that the class also will feel very much more comfortable with the tutors now, so they do feel more comfortable to speak out in class, as I mentioned before. They may not have liked to ask questions before, and I know there are still some people I've spoken to and they don't like to interact in class and they prefer to listen to other people's questions. But again, that's where the academic input is really valuable in a presentation, because they make sure they're asking questions to get us the information that we need to do our work. It could be that some of us feel too comfortable and possibly ask too many questions, but I don't think that's ever a bad thing, except for when you have time restraints to stick to, which we did in Cardiff, and it did mean that sometimes not everybody got to ask the questions that they wanted to, and often we did end up on the same sort of train of questioning for quite a long time, trying to get the answer that we wanted, and it wasn't really coming. I originally studied my undergraduate at London Met, and I felt like there was very little interaction between students and between staff members. We had really large lectures in huge lecture theatres. I mean, obviously I was studying business studies, so it meant that that was the kind of situation that everybody was in. But the seminar classes were quite big, and typically people were just talking off slides, which isn't very valuable. I didn't really feel also valued as a member of the university as a student. There was very little involvement from like a student ambassador scheme, for example, which I'm involved with at Middlesex. So I think things like that are really important, and I do enjoy that at Middlesex. But I think that overall the experience of the residential, like I've said, has just brought everybody closer together, and made everyone a lot more confident, a lot more happy, and a lot more knowledgeable. And I think it's an experience that all of us will value for a very long time.